Lopes of R&B trio TLC was behind the wheel in a fatal car crash Thursday in Honduras. Lopes, who was not licensed, was driving a Mitsubishi SUV carrying 7 other passengers.
Who is this? Who is this man? Who is this?
Search for a killer in South Florida after an up-and-coming rapper is shot dead. 20-year-old XXXTentacion killed in an apparent robbery.
She's 16. She that might go to jail, but it's all good.
Back open after a deadly crash in South Fulton County. We're learning more this morning about the man killed in the wreck. Local rapper Shawty Lo.
Being a rapper is one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. Over half of fallen hip-hop artists have lost their lives to homicide, while the rest have mostly died from drug overdoses and car crashes. Speaking of car-related deaths, hip-hop has lost some greats to tragic accidents, from Tupac being shot and killed.
Fatal shooting, but he couldn't survive a second. Rap star Tupac Shakur died last night after a brief life in a rough business. He was 25.
To the unfortunate car crash that claimed Left Eye Lopes' life.
Lopes of R&B trio TLC was behind the wheel in a fatal car crash Thursday in Honduras. Lopes, who was not licensed, was driving a Mitsubishi SUV carrying 7 other passengers.
Let's dive in, starting off with Shawty Lo. Shawty Lo was a huge figure in Southern hip-hop, especially during the mid-2000s Snap era. He brought a lot of charisma, flavor, and street-certified authenticity to the scene.
She's 16. She that might go to jail, but it's all good.
But on September 21, 2016, tragedy struck. It was the end of the road for one of Atlanta's most beloved voices. That night, Shawty Lo had just left the club around 2 a.m., cruising in his Audi A7 with 2 women in the car. They were headed down the highway when, according to reports, Shawty was really gunning it, speeding way above the limit. The women later said they told him to slow down, tried to get him to ease up, but it seems like he wasn't trying to hear it. Then, things took a tragic turn. Shawty Lo lost control of the vehicle. He veered off the road, flew over a guardrail, and the car slammed into 2 trees. The impact was brutal. Shawty Lo was ejected from the car, and when paramedics finally got to the scene, there was nothing they could do. He was gone.
We have breaking news. An exit ramp on I-285 is back open after a deadly crash in South Fulton County. We're learning more this morning about the man killed in the wreck. Local rapper Shawty Lo.
News of his death spread fast, and the entire rap world was stunned. Fans, peers, and fellow artists poured out tributes online. But while the community was still mourning and trying to make sense of the loss, things got weird and kind of disturbing. One of the big headlines that came out after his passing was about the large amount of cash Shawty Lo had on him at the time of the crash. The 2 women who had been in the car survived with non-life-threatening injuries, but instead of being shaken or focused on what just happened, they reportedly went straight for the money, taking the cash right there on the scene. That part really rubbed people the wrong way. At first, it looked like a cold case of theft, but then rumors started flying that the police on the scene actually gave them permission to take the money, which only made things even more confusing. Like, why would law enforcement allow that, whether they had or told they could take it or not? The act came off as shady and incredibly disrespectful. Still, no foul play was ever confirmed. In the end, it seems like Shawty Lo was speeding without a seatbelt, and sadly, it cost him his life. Next up is Tupac, arguably one of the most iconic names in hip-hop history. On September 6, 1996, Tupac Shakur was at the peak of his powers. He was untouchable, the face of the West Coast, the voice of rebellion, and a lyrical prophet. But just one day later, on the night of September 7th, everything changed forever.
Yes, I am gonna say that I'm a thug. That's because I came from the gutter.
People in the hood call him Black Jesus. They was like he was sent here to save them.
Tupac was riding with Death Row Records boss Suge Knight in a black BMW 750 IL cruising down the Las Vegas Strip. Pac was standing up through the sunroof, talking to some women in a nearby car. It was just another night, until it wasn't. Out of nowhere, another vehicle pulled up next to them. And then came the gunfire. A flurry of bullets ripped through the BMW. Tupac was hit 4 times, once in the chest, once in the arm, and twice in the thigh. He was rushed to the hospital where he fought for 6 days. But on September 13, 1996, at just 25 years old, Tupac Amaru Shakur took his last breath.
Fatal shooting, but he couldn't survive a second. Rap star Tupac Shakur died last night after a brief life in a rough business. He was 25.
Fast forward to 2017, that very same black BMW went up for sale. TMZ reported that an auction house was trying to sell the restored car for $1.5 million, and it still had some of the original bullet holes in it, but even with all the attention and history behind it, there's no public record of anyone actually buying the car. And then we have Biggie, another tragic loss that shook the game to its core. On March 8, 1997, Biggie was in LA after attending a Soul Train Awards after-party at the Peterson Automotive Museum thrown by Vibe and Quest Records. The party was packed, so packed that the fire department had to shut it down around 12:30 a.m., so Biggie and his crew decided to call it a night and head back to their hotel. Biggie was riding in the front passenger seat of a green GMC Suburban with Lil Cease. Meanwhile, Diddy followed in a separate car, rolling with his bodyguards. Everything seemed calm, until they stopped at a red light around 12:45 a.m. That's when a black Chevy Impala pulled up next to them. The driver, described as a man dressed clean in a blue suit and bow tie, rolled down the window, pulled out a 9mm and started firing.
I was behind Big in the passenger seat talking to some females on the sidewalk, and maybe like a second later, this Impala pulled up.
Biggie was hit 4 times. The team rushed him to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, but it was too late. At just 24 years old, Christopher Wallace, the notorious Big, was gone.
I think that's the first time I couldn't hold back my tears.
It's the last thing I thought, that Big would be dead, but it was reality. It was real.
For decades, conspiracy theories have swirled around his death. One of the most persistent rumors is that Diddy might have had something to do with it, either by knowingly putting Biggie in harm's way or by failing to stop what he may have suspected.
People would say he had no business in LA at that time. We all knew that. Why would Puff rent studio time? Come on, man, look. You gotta look at what people do, man. You know Pac just got killed. It ain't no kind of business Big was doing. Big couldn't even walk, he couldn't run. They was pushing him around in a wheelchair, brother.
People have pointed to all kinds of clues, like why Diddy didn't stop at the light, or why strange stickers were seen on Biggie's car.
Walk us through those final moments.
We get out, Puff pull out first. We pull out behind him. He blow past the light. We stopped at the light.
But none of it has ever led to charges. Nobody has ever been held accountable. And get this, the very SUV Biggie was killed in was reportedly bought by a random family at a public auction in 1997. They had no idea what they were getting until nearly a decade later, when a detective reached out and dropped the bombshell. The car had since been patched up, bullet holes filled in, but one thing remained untouched: a hole in one of the seatbelts. The SUV eventually went up for auction again, years later. But just like with Tupac's BMW, no one ended up buying it. Next up is XXXTentacion, another young artist whose death felt like a gut punch to the entire music world. X was blowing up. Practically overnight, he went from underground SoundCloud fame to topping Billboard charts and having millions of fans around the globe. But on June 18, 2018, all of that came to a brutal, heartbreaking end. That day, X had just made a withdrawal from the bank, $50,000 in cash. He was riding around in his distinctive BMW i8. He was headed to Riva Motorsports in Deerfield Beach, Florida, but what he didn't know was that he was being hunted. A guy named Dedrick Williams had spotted him months earlier at a probation office and remembered his car. So when Williams and his crew, Robert Allen, Michael Boatwright, and Trayvon Newsom, saw that same BMW that day, they saw it as an opportunity. They followed X to the motorcycle shop. While X was inside browsing, Williams and Allen went in too. But they weren't shopping for bikes. They bought black face masks and then dipped back outside to wait. When X finished up and got into his car to leave, they blocked him in with their vehicle. Boatwright and Newsom jumped out, ran up to X's car, and tried to rob him. They went straight for his chain, punching and struggling with him through the window. X's uncle was in the car too, but he ran off during the commotion, leaving X by himself. When they couldn't snatch the chain, they went for the Louis Vuitton bag sitting in the car, the one with the $50K in it. After grabbing the bag, Newsom ran back to the car, but Boatwright wasn't done. For no reason, he pulled out a gun and shot XXXTentacion. Just like that, one of the most promising stars of a new generation was gone. Moving on to Julio Foolio. Foolio had been living in danger for a long time. Between rap beefs and street drama, he was no stranger to bullets flying. But in June 2024, his luck finally ran out. He had just turned 26 and decided to celebrate with a big pool party, inviting fans and friends via Instagram. As the party picked up steam, the location ended up changing. Reports say police shut the original venue down, and Foolio switched things up last minute, relocating the celebration to a Holiday Inn. He stayed active on social media, updating fans with the new spot. But somewhere along the way, enemies started plotting. When Foolio left the club later that night and hopped into his black Dodge Challenger, he was being watched.
Shows how two suspect vehicles continued to follow Jones, just as they did at Teasers, and eventually to the Home 2 suites near USF.
They're approaching the victim's position on foot.
An Impala car was tailing him closely. When Foolio pulled over to park, the shooters made their move. They lit up his car with a mix of rifle and handgun fire. Foolio's car tried to drive off, but it was too late. He was already hit.
A parked Tesla showed 3 shooters firing several shots at the vehicle Jones was riding in, killing him.
The man who had dodged so many bullets before, including a shooting just a month earlier, didn't make it this time. That earlier incident in October 2023 was eerily similar. Foolio had been driving through a neighborhood in Jacksonville on the 3100 block of 18th Street West, not far from a local school, when his car was sprayed with bullets. He was shot in the foot but survived. That shooting happened in the same Dodge Challenger he would later die in. Next up is Angie Stone. Angie was a trailblazer, a true pioneer in R&B and neo-soul. Her voice, her presence, her influence, all of it helped carve out the sound that artists draw from. She was a legend while she was still here, but sadly, her life came to a tragic end in 2024. At 63, she was still active in the game, performing and traveling. But during a trip after a show, tragedy struck. Angie was in a Sprinter van when the vehicle flipped over and was hit by a truck.
R&B singer Angie Stone has died in a car crash. We're told she had just finished a concert in Mobile, Alabama Friday, was heading to Atlanta when the van she was riding in crashed.
The crash was devastating, but what's really eerie is that Angie was the only person who didn't survive. Everyone else in the van made it out with minor injuries.
Told that multiple people were also in the van you saw in those pictures, but the singer was the only person to have died. Nothing further is available at this time.
That's where the conspiracies began. Some fans and observers started asking questions. Was it really just an accident? Some said Angie wasn't even inside the van when the fatal blow came, but had stepped out when the truck hit, almost like she was targeted. Others pointed out how the truck driver's name hasn't been released and why none of the passengers have publicly spoken about what happened. So far, there's been no official foul play, but the silence surrounding the situation has only added to the suspicion. Lastly, we have Lisa Left Eye Lopes, the wild child of TLC and one of the most unique voices the music world has ever known. On April 25, 2002, Lisa was in Honduras, deep into a personal spiritual journey. She was staying there for a while, filming a documentary about her transformation, healing, and growth. That day, she was behind the wheel of a rented Mitsubishi Montero SUV, driving through La Ceiba. The road ahead got tricky. A truck pulled into her path and Lisa swerved hard to avoid it. In doing so, she overcorrected and tried to dodge another oncoming car. The vehicle flipped several times, hitting 2 trees before landing in a ditch. There were others in the car, and all of them were thrown from the vehicle. But Lisa took the brunt of the crash. She died instantly from a skull fracture and brain trauma. She wasn't wearing a seatbelt. She was only 30 years old.
Lopes of R&B trio TLC was behind the wheel in a fatal car crash Thursday in Honduras. Lopes, who was not licensed, was driving a Mitsubishi SUV carrying 7 other passengers.
The eerie part was that the entire accident was caught on camera. Since she was filming a documentary at the time, there were cameras inside the car that recorded the final moments. Lisa's death left a huge hole in music. TLC never really recovered, and fans around the world were devastated.